back down and shut your trap. It's time for
Keeping It Sports with M3.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Well, I'll need some beer.
Are you ready?
You have to ask me nicely.
Come on now, don't be bashful.
Are you ready? Are you ready for
Place for the best sports talk and news surrounding each league.
I can prove it with my usual flawless logic.
Hey, man, this time we'll do it my way.
What's your name again?
And now, here's your host, M3, Mike Rosansky. Coming to you from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's time for Keeping It Sports with M3, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everything's going well on this Monday, the 14th day of November. Hope you're all having a great day, had a fun, safe, exciting weekend. As I talked about last week, usually around this time of the year, the NFL captures so much of our emotions, so much of our love and joy as a sports fan. We probably feel more connected to any team we root for as when it comes to football than we do any of the teams we root for in any other major sports. So when you hit the bye week for your favorite team, or your team played on Thursday Night Football, you get to football Sunday, sometimes you're not really sure what to do with yourself, especially if you don't have the NFL package on whatever streaming service it's available on these days. Me, I stick with watching the Red Zone when the Jets aren't playing. But like I said, with the Jets not playing and them being on such a surprisingly good start this year, I was worried, would there be anything to capture my attention? Well, Vikings, Bills, and Packers, Cowboys, thank you very much, because you made it a very joyful, happy Sunday for yours truly. And not because of the two teams that lost. I'm not going to sit here and be a jerk or an a-hole toward the Bills fans or the Cowboys fans, because those losses yesterday, those are tough losses to stomach, especially when you have such a big lead with, about a quarter left to go in those games, and you're playing teams that you feel that you're superior to. Even though, in the case of the Minnesota Vikings, we've shown them little to no respect. And I'm not just talking about myself. I'm talking about the media. I'm talking about fans that are not Minnesota Viking fans. Anywhere you turn on television, radio, no one seems to respect the Minnesota Vikings. And we know the story by now. Kirk Cousins is a 1 o'clock quarterback and does not handle the big spot very well. Well, yesterday was a big spot. Yesterday was a spot where you're 7-1. You're going up against a team that is considered a Super Bowl contender or Super Bowl favorite in the AFC this year. Go out there and show us something. And early on, it was not looking good for Kirk and the Vikings. Especially being down by 17 with just under 20 minutes to go, not having much offense, Cousins having a couple of bad interceptions in the mix there, and Allen showing not much signs of the elbow injury that people spent all week, day and night, worried and concerned about. You thought there was not a hope, not a prayer in the world for the Minnesota Vikings, but sometimes just one play can turn things around. And the Bills had kept Dalvin Cook in check for most of the game until he broke off that 81-yard touchdown drive, and that's when the juices started flowing. That's when belief started to come in for the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, because on the sidelines, you're always going to be confident. You're always going to have a belief. But sometimes, the other team just says no. Sometimes the will and determination you put out there isn't enough to overcome what is not an overwhelmingly superior opponent, but definitely a better team. You look at twice yesterday in the third quarter, the Vikings had to use timeouts to calm down the crowd noise because they weren't able to get the correct signals in time to avoid a delay of game. But once Dalvin Cook had that long touchdown run, seemed to change the trajectory of this game. You had the 4th and 2 play down in Minnesota territory, which I understand wanting to be aggressive there. But rather than throwing the pick there, if you're Allen, the smarter play is just, throw the ball away. I know it would be a turnover on downs, and you want to do everything possible to score there. Me personally, I would have just kicked the field goal and forced the Vikings to try to drive the field on us twice. But Allen throws a pick right in the middle of the field to Patrick Peterson. And what I don't understand there, maybe it's just, the speed of the game, not, wanting to think about your injury at that time. Why, when he's trying to run down Peterson for the tackle, is he throwing at him, his potentially damaged right elbow? That didn't make a lot of sense to me right there. But from that moment on, those two sequences really seemed to get the Vikings going because they would sandwich that interception with 2 touchdown drives. And then late in the fourth, even though it didn't lead to a score, that final long drive that they had set a pace, set everything up for what was the craziness to come, what was the excitement of the end of this game, because you have that unbelievable catch by Justin Jefferson, which I don't know if we're going to be thinking or talking about the Odell Beckham Jr. catch anytime soon after the catches that we saw in that game. I mean, Stephon Diggs has a one-hand catch in the later stages of the third quarter. And about 45 minutes later, Jefferson saying, "Hey, Diggs, hold my beer," because that was just insanity. Not just going up and catching it the way he did, but the fact that he comes down and catches it as he's coming down close to his hip like that, ball never even touching the ground. And even though it didn't lead to a score there yet, you thought you had the go-ahead touchdown, but it called back on review. It set up the Bills for a situation where they couldn't just take a knee in the end zone for a safety. And looking back on it now, that might have been the way to go because Allen had his second of what would be 3 turnovers yesterday with the fumble in the end zone with Eric Kendrick recovering at there. And what's weird with all of this, how many times are we going to see the Bills have these chaotic end-of-game spots in classic games? Like it seems like these kind of things always happen to them. Music City Miracle, what happened last year against Kansas City, the final 13 seconds, and now this spot here where the Vikings, all they had to do was fall on a fumble. It wasn't like they really did anything to force this here, and they got the go-ahead. And in a way, I'm glad they won this, not just because the Bills are a division rival who I'm happy about them losing, but it would have set a bad taste in my mouth and a lot of football fans' mouth if the Bills had won after that game-tying drive to force overtime, because Gabe Davis did not have a catch there along the sidelines. I don't know how the replay officials or Secaucus, wherever this was reviewing this, did not stop the game right then and there and review that in such a crucial spot there just to make sure. I know Allen and the company were rushing up to the line, but just to make sure that it was a good catch, because he clearly did not go out of bounds to the ground with full control of the ball there. But hey, things set well for the Vikings. They had the go-ahead field goal in overtime, and then Peterson at the end getting his second interception to steal victory from the jaws of defeat from Allen and company. We got to start respecting the Vikings. We have to start showing that, hey, stop with the yeah buts until they give us a reason for there to be a yeah but with them. They're a good team. This is a legitimately good team. I mean, the Vikings aren't paying Kirk Cousins $35 million a year for no reason whatsoever. And he's got legit weapons all over the field here. Wide receivers, running backs, tight ends. You look at all those spots, it's high quality players lined up in those roles. This is a real team to deal with. I mean, maybe we haven't paid them enough respect because they haven't had a true challenger in that division this year with how bad the Green Bay Packers have been, or the fact that most of the excitement in the NFC has come from the NFC East, or we're talking about spending too much time talking about the Buccaneers and what's going wrong there, or what's going wrong with the Rams. But the Vikings are a real team, and they're going to have a chance to back that up and continue proving that next Sunday when they go up against the Cowboys. They're going to get the A spot on Sundays. The A spot is not Sunday Night Football, people. The A spot is that 425 game in which you're getting the top crew, Burkhardt, Olsen, Aaron Andrews, Tom Rinaldi, going and doing that game. And they're going to be coming up against a Cowboy team that is maybe reeling is too strong of a word, but is coming off of a tough loss in their own right against the Packers yesterday, which, you wonder sometimes what runs through that organization. Is it just pure stupidity, or is it just this air of confidence where they think that everything they're going to do works? Because you look on the other sidelines yesterday, the Packers set the blueprint for the Cowboys on what they should be doing. Be a run-heavy team, set up play actions down the field, especially when you're not that strong at wide receiver. I mean, CeeDee Lamb probably had his best game of the season yesterday, but he has not been overly impressive this year. You're just getting Michael Gallup back now from injuries. And the fact that the Packers, the team that's reeling, the team that's desperate, that's on a 5-game losing streak, they were the ones that were willing to stay disciplined. They were the ones that were willing to take what was given to them and set up design runs on 62% of their plays, highest percentage in the Aaron Rodgers, Matt LaFleur era, is a large chunk of the reason why they won this game. I don't get why they had Dak Prescott backing up the throw 46 times in this game, especially when you've got Tony Pollard running for well over 5 yards a clip. He was really dominant early in this game, and then they seemed to get away from him a bit and allowed Rodgers and company the opportunity to nickel and dime their way right back into this game. And there were several times where you're looking at McCarthy, it's like, what are you thinking? Why not just take a field goal here, especially in overtime? The 4th and 3 play there, after you had just cut into what was a 2nd and 19 when you got a holding penalty called against you. You were able to cut off a chunk of that on 2nd and 19 down to 3rd and 3. Like I said, Tony Pollard was great yesterday, but they got away from him because whether they wanted Dak to be the hero or they thought that they could just pick apart the Packers defense with the pass game, they really got away from what was working too quick. We're not disciplined. I mean, you had another 9 penalties from this team who seems to be leading the league every week in penalties, and blew a great chance at not just putting away the Packers for the season, even though I look at them and I think it's more of a mirage, more of a, hey, good feeling moment just for a week for Packers fans. Yesterday was more about Dallas's lack of defense, stupidity at head coaching, and lack of self-awareness in this game. I mean, Dak, both of those interceptions, I don't know, when you're in the red zone, you cannot throw interceptions. Like, at minimum, you should be getting a field goal there. Anytime a red zone possession turns into a turnover or an interception, it's a wasted drive and a chance at life for the opposition. But on the second one, I'm not sure whether he thought CeeDee Lamb was going to cut back across the field or whatever, but 2 times he threw it right to Rudy Ford's hands, and was a large part of the reason why the Cowboys, when they had the opportunity to blow this game open, and maybe that's what they were thinking, let's be electric, let's be exciting, let's blow this game up. When you saw a couple weeks ago when they faced the Bears, keep it simple, stupid. And a good ground game, while it's not the sexiest thing in the world for most football fans, is a big thing for winning ingredients. The first time in franchise history, and you would think that this happened by now at some point in the 62 years that this franchise existed, but for the first time in franchise history, blowing a 14-point, not just blowing a 14-point lead after 3 quarters, but losing when you had a 14-point lead after 3 quarters. They had the game in hand there if they would have just been patient and disciplined and followed the ingredients or followed the blueprint that was presented to them by the Green Bay Packers. And instead, McCarthy and company are looking up, wondering what could have been. But hey, as a fan of a team who was on a bye yesterday, thank you, Cowboys. Thank you, Bills. Thank you for providing me with some excitement, some thrilling football to watch, especially because those games weren't just on the NFL Red Zone. They were on national TV, so they kept what was a bye week Sunday very entertaining for yours truly. All right, a lot to get to for the next about 40 minutes or so here. Give you some thoughts on a surprising, to say the least, coaching hire in the last week. A couple of teams that are dealing with the drama. In fact, one piece of drama that just seemingly won't go away. Give you some thoughts on the possible return of Odell Beckham Jr. Are we coming close to that? As well as some thoughts on Kyrie Irving, the Knicks. A lot to get to for the next about 45 minutes or so here. So please, sit back, relax, put your feet up on the table on this Monday afternoon, and continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
The only bad thing about a podcast is that sometimes while I'm recording it, there will be news that breaks where I say to myself, oh, damn, I wish I had known that, an hour or so beforehand. Then I could have talked about it on here. That could have been a topic for me to break down. And what do you know? That was the case once again last week. The Indianapolis Colts decided to make a coaching change and fired Frank Reich and his 5-year tenure there as head coach. And you kind of figured with how things were going there that there was going to be a coaching change at the very latest by the end of the season. Now, I'm never a fan of the in-season coaching firing, unless the coach truly proves that he needs to go and is a detriment to the organization. Like Ben McAdoo years ago in his second year as Giants head coach, or Adam Gase should have been fired during his second year as the New York Jets head coach. But in this case, I thought Frank had done enough to at least warrant being the head coach for the rest of the season. And if he was not going to be the head coach for the rest of the season, I would have at least gone with one of his assistant coaches, whether it be Gus Bradley and company, or someone on that staff, John Fox, somebody who's been there all year, to be the interim head coach for the rest of the season. I was absolutely floored and stunned when I heard the news of who their new head coach was going to be as I was driving home last week. When the news broke, not just that Frank Reich was fired, but his successor or replacement as interim head coach for the rest of this season would be ESPN analyst Jeff Saturday. Yeah, that Jeff Saturday that we see on TV almost every day and was the former longtime center for the Colts in the Peyton Manning, Tony Dungy era and the beginning of the Andrew Luck era. A guy who's had no head coaching experience in the NFL. Hell, has no coaching experience above the high school level, is taking over as their head coach. At first, I laughed about this because I thought to myself, oh, if the New York Jets did something like this, everyone would have a field day. The media, fans outside of New York would mock, make fun of the Jets from here to eternity. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, all right, good for Jeff Saturday getting this spot. I was more so befuddled and kind of questioned, why would you go outside the organization for not just, I know it's a Colts legend, but going for a guy that has no experience whatsoever, even though he's a Colts legend, as mentioned, instead of going with one of your guys from within. Because, things like this are why we have the Rooney Rule. Things like this are why there's rules in place when it comes to any hiring in the NFL, not just with head coaches, but assistant coaches as well. And I understand that you could not go outside of the organization during the season to hire a guy. You weren't going to bring some free agent coach in off the streets. Like you weren't going to bring in Matt Rule to coach the Colts for the rest of the season, or Sean Payton wasn't going to come out of his semi-retirement to coach this team. And that's a name to possibly look for in the long term for this team. But why wouldn't you give that opportunity? If you're not going to give it to Gus Bradley, somebody else on that coaching staff. Give somebody else the chance to build their resume. Give somebody else a chance to put on tape that they can lead a locker room of men. I mean, we've seen John Fox do it. He's done it successfully. Gus Bradley, I'm sure, could possibly get another crack. At least he'll be in the mix for interviews along the way. But somebody new, someone fresh to get their name out there, because I don't look at this and think that, oh, all of a sudden Jeff Saturday is going to do this long term. This feels like it's a just do it for the rest of the season kind of thing, doing Jim Irsay a favor here, because for 4 years, Frank Wright and company went to him offering him spots on the coaching staff. And every year he said, no, I just want to do my job at ESPN. I've got a great life here, spend a lot of time with my family. And with the fact that the Colts, in all likelihood, are not going anywhere. They're not going to catch the Tennessee Titans in that division. I mean, they're currently sitting there. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, they are 2 back in the loss column. They have a tie in the mix there. And the Titans have played one less game than them. They're not going to catch them in the division. They're not going to all of a sudden make a run at a wild card spot, even as good as Matt Ryan looked at yesterday. To me, this is just a fill-in for right now kind of spot. And I would have much rather it gone to somebody that had been there every day, that deserved the chance to build their resume, rather than someone that we're bringing in off TV just because he's a legend of that franchise. Now, they did end up winning his debut, and who knows, maybe in the end, he's getting the last laugh at all of us. The Colts are laughing at all of us with all of the reactions and some of the possible overreactions that there have been in the last week. But you do have to take that for a grain of salt when you consider they're going up against a team that has just as much, maybe even more drama than the Colts do right now in the Las Vegas, should be Oakland Raiders. The Raiders were... Remember, before the season started, we were looking at the AFC West and saying, could this be the year that not 3, but all 4 teams in one division make the postseason? And instead, the Raiders have been dreadful. Josh McDaniels and Derek Carr can't seem to get on the same page. You got Devontae Adams questioning his decision to go to Las Vegas in talks with the media and appearances on podcasts. You got Derek Carr crying after games because he doesn't feel like the entire team is giving the same effort, giving the putting in the same work as everybody else to be prepared for a game on Sunday, Monday, or Thursday. McDaniels is just looking there like dumbfounded on the sidelines. And you even have a player on the team, a guy who's been viewed as a locker room leader in everywhere he's gone, in Blake Martinez, retiring mid-season just 4 days after he led the team in tackles. I mean, if that doesn't tell you how bad things are going there in Las Vegas, I quite frankly don't know what to tell you, because this entire situation seems like a mess. And one of their division rivals, should we call them that they're going up against next week, continues to be filled with drama as well. And listen, I love the guy. I've been a big fan of his since he was at Wisconsin. But can we go 1 week? I'm asking for 1 freaking week without Russell Wilson being in the headlines for anything other than what he does on the field. That's all I'm asking for. 1 damn week. I mean, the latest example of that this week was the fact that, you figured the number one story would be them going up against the tight ends and their loss in Tennessee. No. Instead, we're sitting here talking about whether Russell Wilson is wearing a wristband or not when he's on the field. Hey, I'm not sure why Pete Carroll felt the need to bring it up when, propping up his guy Geno Smith and talking about what has helped him in his coming out party, his second or third lease on his football life this year, whatever you want to call it or talk about it. But this whole nonsense with the wristband became a talking point this week, became a big headline. Oh, Pete Carroll said Russell Wilson didn't wear a wristband. And then Russ felt the need to respond because a reporter asked him a question about it after practice on Thursday. And it became a story that had legs that grew that, quite frankly, shouldn't have been, a big deal. Quite frankly, shouldn't have been something that ESPN, Fox Sports, any of these other sports networks are wasting time in their lives or all of our lives discussing. And that's all I'm asking for. 1 week, Russ, where it's just about football, not about whether you're wearing a wristband or if you're doing high knees on the plane to London. And the fact that you got kickers on other teams making fun of you for that shows you how much of a dork you truly are. Like I said, I love the guy, but for 1 week, that's all I'm asking for, Russ. 1 damn week, 1 measly week. Just be about football instead of any other possible nonsense. I mean, you can't say it's a bad move, him going to Denver, because he is getting $254 million over the next 5 years. But when you see your former team is winning games with a quarterback that we've always perceived to be much lesser than you, has always been thought of as kind of just a backup quarterback ever since the moment IK Enemkpali broke his jaw 6 years ago. And they're, a team that people are getting somewhat excited about, even with their loss to the Buccaneers in Germany yesterday. Maybe you should stop having so much drama, so much attention around you, and just concern yourself on, hey, how do we get back in the mix of things when it comes to a playoff spot? Because, you're 4 games back in the loss column to the Chiefs, so that's not happening when it comes to the division. And you've got currently 5 teams you got to jump over for a wild card spot. You are currently 2 games back in the loss column with of the Patriots for the 7th seed in the AFC. And you just barely hold a tiebreaker over Pittsburgh on best win percentage in conference if it came to that. And we all know the Steelers are not going anywhere this year either. And it's been kind of a messy first year for the Wilson, Nathaniel Hackett regime there in Denver, right? All right, gonna take another break here. Come back on the other side, and hey, Odell Beckham Jr., his name has started to float out there once again. Could we be nearing his possible return? And could he be coming home? Continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
Last Friday was the beginning of unrestricted free agency in Major League Baseball. For the first 5 days after the World Series, teams have the exclusive rights to talk to their own free agents and possibly make a deal with them, as we saw with Edwin Diaz, and as we saw a couple of teams do with relievers who had breakout seasons, such as the Padres with Robert Suarez and the Houston Astros rewarding Rafael Montero for his all-star caliber season. But I've been reading Twitter over the last couple days, looking across social media and seeing baseball fans, in particular Yankee fans, freaking out, bugging out, wondering, oh, what's going on? How come nobody's done anything yet? How come no one has made any free agent signings? How come in all the other sports you see guys jumping on, signing on right away, but baseball, we're not seeing anything go down? You know, is this hurting or affecting the Yankees' chances at re-signing Aaron Judge? And I'm like, people, chill out, okay? It's Monday. It's 3 days after unrestricted free agency has began. And the reason why you see players jumping on board and signing with teams within the first 48 hours of free agency in the NBA, the NFL, and the NHL, especially in the NFL and the NBA, because you get this whole nonsense with the legalized tampering period, and then suddenly 6 o'clock on a certain day in the NBA hits, or 4:05 on a Wednesday for the NFL hits, and you suddenly see 20 players sign in new locations, and you're wondering, how the hell did that happen? It's because those teams and those sports have salary caps. The players are going to jump on the money quicker in those sports because they realize that they have to get their piece of the pie now, because if they sit around, wait for it, and try to let things play out and haggle with a certain team, that money may end up not being there. That money might disappear, and that they blew their chance at the biggest contract that they may ever see. Major League Baseball players, they know they got time on their hands here, right? First pitch, the start of the season, is not until March 30th. Spring training doesn't start until about 2 weeks after Valentine's Day, and pitchers and catchers don't report until mid-February. So these guys got time on their hands. And the teams, you know, they're talking to agents. They're talking to other teams about prospective trades. You're not going to see anything major between now and Thanksgiving. Occasionally, you know, the likes of Buster Olney and Ken Rosenthal, Tim Kurchin, whoever you want to throw out there that you like that covers Major League Baseball, will be annoyed on what's supposed to be the best night of the year, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, because some team will just piss them off and make a big free agent signing or a big trade, and they got to stop everything they're doing and write an article about it. Sometimes that does happen, but more times than not, it's the weekend after Black Friday in which action starts taking place. All right, moves are going to be made. These guys are going to get their money, especially Judge. Players are going to get signed. But you can't expect it's going to happen like that in Major League Baseball like it does in the other sports. They don't work with the salary cap. Thank God they don't. And these players, these teams, they're in no rush to make commitments, long-term commitments. Just because you want action doesn't mean they're going to give it to you right away. Now, one piece of action that may take place before anything happens in Major League Baseball, and I would be surprised if any big free agents in baseball sign before this guy makes a decision on his next location, is the future of Odell Beckham Jr. Because we know he's been rehabbing from tearing his ACL in the Super Bowl last year, and it's only a matter of time until he signs with a new team. But the question is when and who is it going to be? Now, one thing I don't want to see is him signing with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this became a big story last week when Jerry Jones in his weekly radio show said Odell Beckham Jr. could look pretty good in a Dallas Cowboys uniform. I don't know, there's people saying, oh, that's tampering. How could he talk about that player? Odell Beckham Jr. is a free agent right now, so anybody could go on their weekly radio show or podcast or go on social media and say so-and-so would look good in their uniform. As long as the guy is a free agent, it's not considered tampering, people. So Jerry, unfortunately, can say what the hell he wants to say in this spot, even though I think the Cowboys would be better off if he shut the hell up sometimes, because his obnoxiousness, his loudness, I think hurts them more so than it helps them, and leads to more people like myself, more people like the likes of Stephen A. Smith on ESPN celebrating and throwing parades and having happiness over their bad losses than any other team in this sport when he makes himself so public like that. But the topic on hand here is when for Odell. Like, he's a remarkable athlete, unbelievable athlete, as great a athletic specimen at the wide receiver position we've ever seen. And any team would be instantly upgraded by having this guy on their team. But the thing is, his list, of course, it's going to be very short because he's going to want to join a team that's in contention. He's going to want to join a team where he has the chance to play beyond the first 2 weeks in January, where he has a chance to play beyond so let's say, every team's played 9 to 10 games right now. Let's say he comes back. Let's say he signs within the next 2 weeks and then is ready to go within a week of signing. That would give him, 5 to 6 games, potentially 7 left in this season to play. So he's going to want to join a team that is in good position for a playoff spot. And you look at the rumored 5 teams that are in the mix there, none of them which are either the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Los Angeles Rams, because the Rams, even though they could use him right now with this possible long-term injury for Cooper Kupp, we're still waiting to see results on the ankle injury there. They're 3-6 and can't get out of their own way there in the NFC West, have been a massive disappointment, but hey, they'll take that being Super Bowl champions. And the Buccaneers are just going to win that division by default and have not looked impressive in their last 2 victories, have just been very opportunistic. But you look at these 5 teams, the Bills, the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Cowboys, and the Giants. The Bills and Chiefs don't exactly need a wide receiver right now. I mean, the Chiefs maybe more so than the Bills, but they started to work Kadarius Toney into the mix there a little bit yesterday, and you're hopeful that the injury to Marquez Valdez-Scantling is not too bad. The Bills' biggest problem is they don't have a run game outside of Josh Allen. They really need to get their ground game going. But the Cowboys could use a wide receiver. The 49ers, could use a flashy wide receiver, and the Giants certainly could use a wide receiver because, outside of Darius Slayton's 54-yard touchdown run yesterday, they have no sizzle. They have no explosiveness on the outside. It's been basically the Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones show for the most part. But you need someone that's a legitimate threat down the field. You need someone that could take the top off of a defense and could have them concerned saying, oh, we got to watch out for going up against this guy. We have to make sure we set a double team on this guy. And then that opens things up for other players on the field. That makes life easier for Darius Slayton. That makes life easier for some of these, lesser known commodities that they have at the wide receiver position. And, a year or two ago, I would have said, no way. Do not bring Odell back here. Especially after, he forced his way out in Cleveland. I would have been like, no, don't go here. But in the last year, or even last 2 years, he seemed to grow the hell up. He seemed to mature a little bit. I think going to LA and being around all of that star power that he had around him, not just on the offensive side, but the defensive side, being around guys like Von Miller, being around guys like Aaron Donald, helped him grow up, helped him stop acting like such an immature kid on the field. I mean, he's gone through some personal things as well. Becoming a father for the first time as well can change someone. But between that and how he handled being around all those veterans in LA, I think he'd be ready to come back to the New York Giants. I think he would be different this time. It wouldn't be so much about the shenanigans, the nonsense, which I spent show after show talking about years back. I think this would actually be the perfect time to bring Odell Beckham back. And I would bring him back on a contract where, hopefully I can get more than 1 year out of him. I know he's looking to put up numbers to get a big deal after this year, but I would hope I could get longer than that from him, because I just look at how Chris Godwin was when he came off of the ACL surgery and how it took some time for him to shake the rust off. And it's going to be the same with Odell Beckham. He's not going to be, that explosive, all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver immediately when he steps back on the field. Maybe the first game he will, because just based on pure adrenaline rush, based on intensity and how much he loved being a New York Giant and how much he loved the Giant fans, that will get him through. But those first couple of games are going to be touch and feel with him come back. You're not going to be able to play him every snap. You're going to have to slowly bring him along. So I would hope that I could get him on something more than 1 year. And if he wants to just only sign for this year, that's fine. But hopefully for the Giants' sake, it's something that goes so well that you're forced to keep him around beyond this year and give Daniel Jones that true number one weapon he has not had. That number one weapon that you thought you were going to get with Kenny Golladay, but he's turned out to be a total bust and quite frankly should have his key card to the Giants practice facility shut down, snapped in half, and never allowed anywhere near the Meadowlands ever again. But the Giants got to do something here. They got to do something because you're having a surprisingly exciting season. And there's only so much longer that they're going to be able to get away with winning games in the fashion that they have. You're not going to be able to play the Texans or the Lions every single week, even though the Lions were able to spoil the party, ruin the show that Justin Fields was putting on yesterday. And at a time where you're missing your best defensive player or one of your best defensive players, one of your defensive leaders with the stupid injury by Xavier McKinney, you had to add a little bit of spice here. Add a little bit of sizzle to this. And what better way than bringing back a guy that the fans love and clearly loves the fans back, loved being a New York Giant, just at times showed it in all of the wrong ways on it and off the field. So, while I would have been against it before, I think it is the absolute right time and perfect time for the Giants to go out there and go bring back Odell Beckham Jr. All right, going to take one last break here. Come back on the other side. Got to talk about Kyrie Irving again. What a surprise. Continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
Welcome back to Keeping It Sports with M3. Only a few more minutes left here, but wanted to finish up with some thoughts on the NBA, including my Brooklyn Nets, who finished off last night their back-to-back trip to LA with a loss against the Lakers. Was not a great shooting night, especially for the likes of Joe Harris and Patty Mills. And Durant set them up with plenty of opportunities. He was getting double-teamed all night long. They just were not hitting these wide-open shots. And we're not able to take advantage of a Lakers team that is trying to get through a LeBron James abductor strain right now. But LeBron and the Nets kind of coincided with each other somewhat when it came to one of the biggest talking points in the NBA right now. And, I sometimes wonder if this is what this guy wanted, if he's just playing us all for the biggest fools in the world. But LeBron shed some thoughts on Kyrie Irving last Thursday, because as we know, Kyrie has now missed the last 6 games after being suspended due to conduct detrimental to the team. And LeBron posted on Twitter some thoughts saying, quote, "I told you guys that I don't believe in sharing hurtful information, and I'll continue to be that way. But Kyrie apologized, and he should be able to play. That's what I think. It's that simple. Help him learn, but he should be playing. What he's asked to do to get back on the floor, I think, is excessive, IMO. He's not the person that's being betrayed of him. Anyways, back to my rehab session." And I tend to somewhat agree with LeBron. Here's what I really believe. I've thought about this all weekend, ever since I read his quote. I listened to a lot of people comment on this, a lot of people on television, radio, podcasts, a lot of opinions out there, because, of course, what was brought up a lot here is, race in this, in the fact that, you have a black athlete serving a suspension that, even though they gave a length, almost feels indefinite. And you typically don't see that with a white athlete, even though there aren't a lot of them in the NBA. The NBA is still, by and large part, a black athlete sport. So there's, not many times that we see this pop up with a particular white athlete. But as I've always said, when I see black people, African-American people give comments on this, all I can do is sit back, listen, and educate myself, especially because I get it, because I don't get it. I'll never understand what it's like having people judge me based on my skin color. I've always been someone who's outright against treating and judging people based on their skin color. So I understand that, A, I don't get the hardship that most black people in this country go through still, and how they have this feeling of not being treated as fair as white people. And I understand where they're coming from here, saying that, oh, he apologized, he should be allowed to play. All I can say is this. I think that the Nets are making him go through all these hoops, and the NBA is allowing them to do this as almost like a lifetime achievement award as far as punishments are concerned. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not going to sit here and say that I entirely agree with the Nets. Now, should they be having him go through some sensitivity training? Yes. But there's a way of doing all of this while still allowing him on the basketball court. Like, they should have taken him off the court right when this happened, right when he shared this post and the initial interview he had with Nick Friedel on ESPN. That's when the time was to suspend him. I thought they waited too long to do that. But once he met with the commissioner, and the commissioner was like, I don't sense any anti-Semitism here, then you could have brought him back and still had him go through some of this stuff, still had him meet with leaders of different organizations or different Jewish communities. They're mostly doing this now, and I could be completely wrong, but I think they're mostly having him do this now based on all of the nonsense that has gone on since he became a Brooklyn Net. Almost as a way of them saying, all right, you've had so much drama since you've been here. We're going to force your hand in getting back on the court. After having to deal with you walking away from the team after January 6th, the vaccination stuff we dealt with you last year, and now this is their way of having their final chance to stick it to Kyrie, because one way or another, he's not going to be a Brooklyn Net after this year. He's going to be elsewhere. He's going to be playing for another team. So the Nets are, and Josiah especially, I think are looking at this as some form of payback, as some form of retribution. Now, he probably kind of sees through that and is, I've said all along, somewhere plotting his next move of attack. What could be that next reason that he looks for not to play? What's the next cause he's going to try to stand on his soapbox for? But I do tend to agree with LeBron and others that it is time for him to come back. You could still have him do a lot of stuff to help educate him, try to set him on a better path. But you did say 5 games. And now, if this goes anywhere beyond, say, Thursday, now it's borderlining on him possibly filing some kind of appeal with the union and having a chance to fight this suspension. And you don't want it to get to that, because then both sides look hideous here. Both sides look horrible. Also, is LeBron possibly saying this to get on Kyrie's good side because he wants Kyrie traded to the Lakers? Remember that rumor that surfaced during the summer? this could be the first legs of that possibly coming to light once again. Now, in the time that Kyrie's been gone, the Nets have gone 4-2, split 2 games at the Staples Center this past week. And who knows, maybe that might get turned back into the Staples Center if you're paying attention to the news recently. But along that 6-game stretch, they beat the Knicks at home in a game that lacked all competitive nature from the onset. I mean, the biggest thing that you could control in sports and hell, in life in general, when you're doing anything, is your effort. You could have an off night, you can have a bad day at the job, as they say, but at least show up and work hard, or in this case, play hard. And the Knicks did not do that. They, crapped the bed at the Barclays Center last Wednesday in a building that was probably at least 60% New York Knicks fans. They embarrassed themselves in front of the city of New York, with most eyes in this city watching. And so far, you're looking at this Knicks team. They're 6-7. They're 9th in the East. And they just have had some outright hideous, awful losses, whether it be the 20-point game that they blew to the Hawks a couple of weeks ago and wound up losing by 20 after leading by 20 early in the third quarter, or last Wednesday to the Nets, or yesterday at home in a mid-afternoon start time, losing by double digits at home to the Oklahoma City Thunder, almost giving up $150 to them. And it being so bad that Tom Thibodeau benched R.J. Barrett in the second half just because he liked certain rotations. I wasn't truly buying that excuse. But the Knicks just look like garbage. The Knicks are playing like absolute trash. There should have been excitement to this team this year with the re-signing of Barrett, with bringing in the hometown kid Jalen Brunson, hoping for a rebound year out of Randall, and the second year of a lot of these young guys on this team. But instead, every time it seems like they're taking one step forward, they're taking another 3 or 4 steps back. And I know we're 13 games into the season. There's still a lot of time, and things are very, clogged up in the East right now. You have about, 4, 5, 6 teams in that 6-8 to 7-7, 8-6 range. Right now they are 2 games back of the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, but they have 2, 3, 4, 6, 5 teams to jump over for that spot, and they're only half a game out of falling out of a play-in scenario. And I don't know about the rest of you, but what really gets on my nerves when it comes to the New York Knicks is that when things are going wrong, things are going bad, you never hear from the hierarchy of this organization. It feels very Wilponish of them that they get to run and hide every time the team is bad. That outside of the fan base, no one holds them accountable. I mean, the fans hollering, screaming on social media and calling into their favorite talk radio shows are the ones seemingly keeping them accountable. But you never, other than Tom Thibodeau in his post-game press conferences, I know the owner has promised to stay out of this. All right, and that's probably a good thing that he is that Jim Dolan has somewhat stayed out of the mix here. But how are we not hearing from either Leon Rose or Worldwide West, how is it that unless it's the very end of the season, we never hear from these guys? I mean, once a month, the general manager should talk to the media. Or if there's a crisis or a trade made. But never, whether it's the team's going through a bad run or it's the trade deadline, Leon Rose has been able to escape without ever having his feet held to the fire. And I just don't understand how he continues to get away with it. How is it that people within that organization are saying, hey, Leon, William Wesley, somebody's got to go out there, represent us. Someone's got to go talk to us. Someone's got to calm down the fan base because they are pissed off at us right now. And even with as annoyed as I get at the likes of Brian Cashman, or as annoyed as I've gotten in the past at the New York Jets, or the Brooklyn Nets, or the New Jersey Devils, you routinely hear from the general manager of those organizations, but you never hear from the front office of the New York Knicks. And I don't understand how ownership does not hold them accountable in that range. How, it's one thing for Jim Dolan to stay out of it when it comes to meddling with trades or hiring his buddies. But even if it's not him, even if it's just one of his minions, shouldn't they be telling Leon Rose and Worldwide West, talk every once in a while, answer some questions, please, give the temperature of the room somewhat? It just makes no sense. Now, this coming Sunday, the Jets are playing the New England Patriots up there in Foxborough, Massachusetts, They are a 3.5-point underdog. And this bye week has been fun. I've gotten a little extra time to celebrate the win against the Buffalo Bills. But now it's time to move on to the second half of this season. Now it's time to look ahead to what is a tough stretch ahead. By no means is it going to be an easy task. First, you've got the Patriots. Then you got a home matchup against the Bears, who can score some points. And we've seen how electric Justin Fields has become the last month since they've figured out an offense to work with around him. And then you're going to have back-to-back road matchups against the Bills and the Vikings before the schedule somewhat calms down with playing the Lions and the Jaguars to close out the 2022 portion of your schedule. This is an important tone-setting game for this second half of the season, and it's an important game for this team and for this fan base to finally exercise some demons against the New England Patriots. You've lost 13 consecutive games against them. The last time you beat the Patriots was in December of 2015. Remember that overtime thriller against Brady and company with Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing the walk-off touchdown to Eric Decker in the corner of the end zone in Week 16 there? It's been a long damn time since you beat this team. And they've beaten the Jets in some humiliating ways over the years. You want to prove that it's not same old Jets? You want to calm any nerves of mine that this is the beginning of a potential second half collapse? Go up there and kick their ass. Go up there and win. You're the better roster. The only thing you're not better than them at, unfortunately, is the head coach position. He's a legend. He's arguably, if not the greatest of all time. But you look around the football field, you tell me one spot, one place that the Patriots are noticeably better than the New York Jets at. You cannot honestly say there's one. Not one with a straight face. There is no reason why you can't go up to their house and do to them what they did down here at the Meadowlands 2 weeks ago. It is time for payback. It is time to shove it to the Patriots, show them that it's a new day, this is a new Jets team, and show that the rest of the NFL that you are truly for real. Back up that Bills win with a win against the demon that you have not conquered in a very long time. Show that this fan base has a reason to believe, a reason to be excited, a reason to know that the rest of this season is going to be meaningful and that we have a shot to go somewhere we have not been in almost 12 years. Go up there, Jets, and get the job done. It is time for you to finally beat the New England Patriots. And that, my friends, was Keeping It Sports with M3 for Monday, November 14th, 2022. Everyone, please have a great night. Have a fun, safe, happy, healthy week. And I'll talk to you guys again, same time next week. Until then, peace.
We have to go. Good night, everybody.
I have had enough of you!
Thank you for all the fun. Thank you. Hey, shut up, will ya?
I don't want to see you, I don't want to hear you, and I don't want to smell you. Now leave. I'll be back.